Hi everyone, I'm April, and you're watching The Tangled Cat Speaks, and this is a book edition. So, I'm April, as I said, and I live in Rio Rancho, New Mexico, and I like to keep you guys caught up on what I've been reading every couple of weeks. So, let's go ahead and jump right into that. Now, I am going to start off by saying I haven't read as many books that I own this week. I did a little bit more borrowing than I would have liked to, but some things just kind of popped up in my holds list and I kind of had to push some other things aside, but that's okay. And the reason why I mention that, just in case you're new here, I have been doing a challenge that I heard about from the Michael K. Vaughan BookTube podcast. And that is to read 100 books that you own before you buy anything new. And I've been doing that since the beginning of the year. I don't think that it was Michael K. Vaughan's idea. I can't remember who he said started it, but it's been going on for a few years and I decided to join in this time. And I am actually up to, as of this date, I am up to 75 books. So I only have 25 left, and then I could buy something new. Probably won't be until probably New Year, but who knows? We shall see. I mean, maybe I could get something for Christmas. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with, let's do the audios. I did 2 audios and both of them were borrowed from the library. You know, one of them, like I said, was one of the things that was a hold for several weeks and it finally showed up. And I got this just because it looked interesting and I was kind of in the mood for something creepy. And this one is called Leech by Hiram Innes. It was definitely weird. It was definitely creepy. This is kind of a science fiction horror-esque kind of thing. And it starts off, you know, with this older man and he's got a doctor, a live-in doctor, and this doctor is taking the place of one who had just recently passed away. I think he was murdered. And now this doctor is trying to figure out what happened to the other doctor, because it just so happens that this new doctor is actually the old doctor in a new body, because the consciousness is actually a parasite, hence the name Leech. He wasn't ready to vacate that other body yet, and now he wants to figure out what's going on because he's also got, or it's also got, lapses in its memory right before that previous body expired. So it was really interesting, and I actually enjoyed it up until the last maybe 20% of the book. I didn't like the twist that it kind of took right at the very end. The rest of it was really good. It was creepy, it was interesting, and it was like, oh my goodness. And then at the end, it just kind of got a little, it kind of shifted gears, and I just didn't like the ends. So overall, I liked the book, just the ending kind of left me meh. Okay, so the other audiobook that I did is a classic sci-fi, because I've been reading classic books throughout the year. We're like one a month, and the reading group that I'm on Discord, it's Mike's Book Reviews Discord. There's a channel under there that is for classics, and then it's kind of broken out into monthly classics. Well, recently somebody has decided that they wanted to break down even further and also have a monthly sci-fi classics group. So the first book that they voted on, which is actually not till, I think it's the September read, but I was ahead on some things, so I went ahead and started it. This is called Day of the Triffids by John Wyndham. Now this is an older book. Oh, I can't even remember the year. I'll have to look that up and find it, but it's a pretty old book. I want to say in the 50s or something. Because just the idea of it makes me think of those old 50s horror movies, you know, where everything, the monsters are kind of cheesy. The Day of the Triffids is basically about these plants that randomly appear, and they grow real big, and they're carnivorous, and they figure out a way to walk. If you look at any of the book covers, it just looks so cheesy, 50s B-movie cheesy. But it was actually really good. I was very into it. Like, I just was focused. I enjoyed it, and I was like, oh, that's so creepy. Now, it gave me vibes of a little bit of Little Shop of Horrors, obviously, but without the singing and without the humor. But some of those things just definitely kept popping in my head. Not that there was anything that, other than the fact it was a animated, mobile, carnivorous plant. That's kind of where the commonalities end. But I still kept thinking about it because that's one of my favorite movies ever. And I also had vibes of The Walking Dead. And not because they're zombies, but because that whole TV series of The Walking Dead, the first season, maybe even 2 seasons, you're terrified of these zombies. But then after that, you start thinking about the people. You start paying, the focus is more on how people treat each other amidst this crisis. And this has quite a bit of that. So it was really, really good. It was very dark. But it was also very short, so it went by very quickly. A lot of things just kind of, it sped through. But I enjoyed it. I had a really good time, and I'm glad that one came up. I never would have thought to read that one before. I've never even heard of it before. So I really, really, really enjoyed that one. Let's see. Now, a couple of other things that I did borrow from the library were some ebooks, and these are 2 really, really short. I guess you would consider them kind of like graphic novel, comic kind of things, but really they're short, super short parodies. There's 64 pages in these books each. There's 2 of them, and what they are, it's a parody of Star Trek, the original, and Star Trek: The Next Generation. These are called Star Trek Cats. And it's basically each character is designated a specific cat. They're dressed in the uniforms, and there's no real story going on in these books. What it is the author, and I think she's also the illustrator, took these cats and drew out some specific popular scenes from the TV series. So it's the exact same thing that you would have seen in the TV series, except they're all cats. It's super cute. It's super hilarious. And like I said, there were 64 pages, but I got through both of them within 10 minutes. And it's, it's just flipping through and just seeing how absolutely hilarious it is. I had a wonderful time with that. It was just something that I kind of just stumbled on, and I was like, I have to read that. And I did think it was going to be more of like a short story or something, but no, it's not that. It's just literally all of these illustrations, they're in color illustrations of these cats as Star Trek characters, and I loved it. I had a wonderful time with that. That was the best 10 minutes ever. Okay, so another ebook that I read was actually one that I owned. Yay, finally got to one that I owned. This is Death Comes at the End, which is an Agatha Christie novel that I have never read before, and I was actually quite surprised by. It was very enjoyable, as I find all of Agatha Christie's books to be, but this was not a Hercule Poirot nor a Miss Marple story. This involved a family back in ancient Egypt, and there is a murder mystery that happens, and it's interesting because even though it's set in Egypt, I mean, it feels like you could take these characters, change their names, change the place names, and it would still be like a like a normal story that Agatha Christie would write in some English village or something. The way that they talk, I mean, everything, the dialogue and everything sounds very 1920s England, but the story is set in ancient Egypt. So it's really interesting. It's a little bit discombobulating when you're trying to keep in mind that, you know, these are ancient Egyptians, but the way that they interact with each other doesn't feel ancient Egypt. But I still enjoyed it. I had a good time with that one, but I was surprised. It was a different take that I had never experienced with Agatha Christie before, so I had a really good time with it. So let's get to let's get to all the physical books that I read. I did finish these 2 books, which are the last 2 in the Protector of the Small series. The 3rd book was Squire, and then the last book was Lady Knight, where she finally makes it there. I have very, very much enjoyed this young adult series. A lot of fantastical creatures, and some of them very dark and spooky, and just a lot of, you know, friendship and loyalty and sense of duty and honor, and it's just really good. There's a lot of humor in it. There's a lot of heavy stuff. It's a really, really, really good young adult story, the whole series, and I very much enjoyed it, and I'm glad that I stumbled upon it. And they do mention a particular character that was apparently in a previous series by this same author in the same world. And so I have found those books at the library. I'm not going to read them anytime soon, but it'll be nice to go back and find out more about this character that this young lady idolizes, and the whole reason why she wanted to become a lady knight herself. So someday I might go back and read those, but so far I very much enjoyed being in this world, and I had a whole lot of fun with it. Very, very much enjoyed those. Those will be donated to a little free library. Now, I also had mentioned the last time that I was doing another event kind of thing by along with Michael K. Vaughan. And again, this is not something that I don't believe he came up with. Another booktuber came up with this, and it's also something that's been going on for a while, and I'm just now getting in on the bandwagon. And this is called Garb August, where you kind of read quote unquote trashy or garbage type books. So I talked about the first 2 that I read because it was 1 a week, and now I'm doing the last 2. So the prompt that they did for the 3rd week was, I think it was novelizations or a book by a celebrity. And several years ago, I happened to stumble across this book in a used bookstore, and I thought, is that who I think it is? And sure enough, it is. This is Lou Diamond Phillips, who I remember most fondly in the movie La Bamba. He's been in a lot of other wonderful things, but yeah, see, there he is on the back. He wrote this science fiction fantasy book, The Tinderbox Soldier of Indira. Now, from what I understand, oh, and his wife did the illustrations. There's some really cool illustrations in here. Let me see. I'm trying to find one. Like there's this. There's those just sprinkled all throughout. Now this is, I believe, a young adult science fiction fantasy. It is set in another world, another planet, but there's a whole lot of fantasy elements in there, like magic and different creatures and stuff. Now it's called the Tinderbox because Lou Diamond Phillips did base this off of the short story by Hans Christian Andersen, and I've honestly never read that story. So now I'm on the hunt for that, so I can read it just so I could see where he got some of these ideas. But this is really, really good. This follows, I guess there used to be one planet, and there was this great, they called it the Great Schism, and something happened where the whole planet literally cracked in half. But they didn't go off on their separate orbits or whatever. They kind of, their gravities held them hovering really close together, and over centuries, the people on this planet and the people on that planet became enemies. And it also came down to kind of race, because for whatever reason, half of the population that was one race ended up on one planet, and half had fled to, you know, they split, you know, so it wasn't just the planet that split, it was these two major races that split, and now they're kind of against each other. And lo and behold, there's a prophecy that says the princess of this one is supposed to marry a common soldier, and that will be the end of her father's reign. And of course he's like totally against it, and he's like keeping her away from everybody. He's keeping her sequestered and hidden from anybody and everyone, especially any soldiers. He's moved all the soldiers out of his the vicinity of where his daughter is being held. It's very interesting. There's a lot of different elements going on there. There is a lot to do with race and with like classes, you know, the rich and the poor and the really, really poor. And so there's a whole lot of very heavy themes in here, but it's also very fantastical and very like a lot of interesting technology and stuff. It's just really, really cool, and it's a very easy read. It's a very, very interesting. I really enjoyed it, and I actually would really, really like it if he decided to write something else. This, I don't know when this came out, 2020, so you know, maybe he's writing something else. I don't know, but I really was very surprised to have found it in the first place, and then to find that I really, really enjoyed it. So even though I read this for Garbagus, this is definitely, in my opinion, not garbage. And then for Garbagus, the last week they basically said anything goes. So a while back I picked up this book because the name cracked me up. I can't remember if I found this in a little library or if I found it in the used bookstore. I think it was in the used bookstore for like $2. But the name grabbed me, and I was immediately, I must read this. And finally I had a chance to now with Garbagus, and this is Ray Garton and Frankenstorm. Just the name, and I'm like, oh, this is gonna be goofy as heck. It's actually got a lot of thriller elements going on. There's an old abandoned hospital, psychiatric hospital, that's been suddenly taken over by scientists, and this other group of people think that these scientists are stealing homeless people to run tests on them. And then there's this other woman that's doing a shady delivery because she needs money to pay for her kids' hospital bills. And then there's another person who's trying to get his son away from his drug addict wife. So there's a whole lot of different points of view going on in this story. And I believe that this originally was released in 6 small parts, and then this particular book puts them all in one place. But there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of points of view, and it's very, very fast-paced. It's kind of what I like to call like potato chip reading. You know, you've got those short, really fast chapters, and then you're like, oh, that chapter was only 2 or 3 pages. I'm going to read another chapter. Oh, that was really short too. And you just kind of keep going. It's like potato chips. You can't stop once you start. So this went by for me really, really fast. Did it have some plot holes? Yeah. Was it the best writing? No. Did I enjoy it? Yeah. So that is all that I have actually read in the past couple of weeks. So September, I am all ready for September. And again, Michael Cavon decided that he's going to come up with something else, another type of event. And I decided to join in because I bought these books. Well, I bought 2 of the books. One of them I found in a little free library maybe 3 years ago. And I've always wanted to read these, and I never have. And I've loved this character since I was a kid because I watched the old movies. Arnold Schwarzenegger, that should be a hint. So the event that Michael Cavon has come up with is called Cimmerian September. And we know this character as the Barbarian, but he's actually from a place called Cimmeria. So we're going to be reading, there's glare, Robert E. Howard's Conan, and this is everything. I have all 3 volumes, everything Conan that he wrote. So there's The Coming of Conan the Cimmerian, and then I've got The Bloody Crown of Conan, and then The Conquering Sword of Conan. Now, from what I understand, there's just a whole bunch of short stories, and they're in the publication order, I believe. But when they were published and how they were written, they weren't written in the chronological life order of Conan. So there's going to be some jumping back and forth at different times of his life, but that's okay. I'm super excited. I used to love that movie when I was a kid. I remember that came out when I was really young, and I want to say it was right around the time when HBO was in its infancy. So I watched Conan quite a bit, really, and then I think after that, at some point, was Red Sonja. I really liked that, which I believe is another of his stories, but I've never read that either. So I was always really interested in that character as a kid, and when I found out they were books when I was older, I always wanted to read them, but I never seemed to get around to it. So now I have them, and we're going to be spending the entire month reading these. So I'm super excited about that, but I'm also kind of intimidated because those are some pretty big books. And I have other things that I'm going to be reading next month too, but we'll talk about that next time. So that's all I've got going right now, and I will see you again next time. Thank you for spending a little bit of time with me. Let me know what you're reading. I'd really love to know. Bye-bye.